I still remember the way the air felt that night, heavy, but strangely electric. It was the kind of silence that hums, like the world itself is holding its breath. My hands were trembling, and I couldn't tell if it was fear, excitement, or both. There it was. A dress. Not just any dress, but the one I'd secretly stared at for weeks without ever daring to touch. It hung on the back of my chair, soft fabric catching the dim light of my room. I don't even know how it got there. Well, that's not entirely true. Someone wanted me to see it. Someone wanted me to wear it. I swallowed hard. My reflection in the mirror didn't help. Just me. Just the same old me. A boy who didn't belong in anything like that. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But there was this voice in the back of my mind. Quiet. Persistent. Almost teasing. What if? What if I slipped it over my shoulders? What if the world didn't end? What if, for just one moment, I stopped pretending and let myself feel? I laughed nervously, shaking my head. This is insane, I whispered to no one. But my voice cracked. And deep down, I already knew, this wasn't just about a piece of clothing. This was about me. About a part of me I'd been ignoring, pushing aside, too afraid to look at directly. My heartbeat picked up, louder than the silence in the room. I reached out. My fingers brushed the fabric. It was softer than I imagined. Warmer too, like it had been waiting for me. I froze, half hoping someone would barge in and stop me. Half terrified they actually would. That was the night everything started to change. The night I crossed the invisible line between who I thought I was, and who I might actually be. And I wasn't ready for what came next. I guess I should start by telling you a little about who I was before that night, before everything shifted. Because if you only knew me from the outside, you'd never guess what was going on inside. On paper, I was ordinary. 19 years old. A student. Just another face in a crowded campus full of people trying to figure themselves out. I wasn't the loud one. I wasn't the charming one. If anything, I was the one who blended in so well that sometimes I felt invisible. And honestly, I liked being invisible. Or at least I thought I did. Classes came and went. Friends were more like acquaintances. I wasn't lonely exactly, but I always felt like I was standing just outside the circle, watching life happen instead of really living it. My roommate, Jamie, was the opposite. He was magnetic. Always cracking jokes, dragging me to hangouts, convincing me to say yes when I wanted to say no. He was the kind of person who could talk to anyone and somehow make them laugh within 2 minutes. And even though he drove me crazy sometimes, he was also the reason I didn't completely vanish into my own little world. Then there was Claire. She wasn't my girlfriend. At least, not in the official sense. She was something else. A friend, yes. But also the only person who ever seemed to look at me and really see me. We met in first-year English, bonding over late-night coffee runs and sarcastic comments whispered in the back of the lecture hall. She had this way of tilting her head when I spoke, like she was studying me, trying to peel back layers I didn't even know I had. Sometimes I caught myself staring too long when she laughed. Sometimes she caught me. And she never teased me about it. Just smiled, like she knew something I didn't. Life was predictable, in that safe, numbing way. Wake up, go to class, come back, half listen to Jamie's stories, maybe study with Claire, scroll through my phone until my eyes burned, then fall asleep and repeat. But here's the thing, in between all that ordinary stuff, little cracks were starting to form. It showed up in quiet ways. Like when Claire would pull me into a thrift store just for fun, twirling in front of a mirror while holding up some outrageous dress. She'd laugh and say, "You should try it," and I'd roll my eyes, pretending to be annoyed, while secretly, I'd imagine what it might feel like. Or when Jamie joked around, tossing one of Claire's scarves over my shoulders, calling me fancy, and everyone laughed, including me. But later, when no one was watching, I'd hold that scarf a little longer than I should have, the softness lingering against my skin. These weren't big moments. They were whispers. Flickers of something I couldn't name. A quiet tug at the edges of who I thought I was. And maybe Claire noticed. Because one afternoon, sitting on her bed with textbooks scattered everywhere, she looked at me out of nowhere and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're pretending?" I blinked. Pretending? She shrugged, flipping her pen in her fingers. Like, you're playing a role. Being the version of yourself people expect, instead of the version that feels real. My throat tightened. I wanted to laugh it off, but her eyes pinned me in place. They were too kind, too sharp. "I guess everyone feels that way sometimes," I muttered. She just hummed, as if she wasn't convinced. That night, lying awake in my dorm bed, her question echoed. Pretending. The word scratched at something deep inside me. And for the first time, I wondered if that was exactly what I'd been doing all along. It was subtle. Invisible to everyone else. But inside me, something was stirring. A quiet ache. A restless curiosity. And it was only a matter of time before it broke through. It happened on a weekend I wasn't prepared for. Jamie had been going on for days about a party. Not just any party, but one of those themed ones where everyone had to dress up. Normally, I'd find an excuse, too much homework, not feeling well, whatever. But this time, Jamie was relentless. "You never come out," he said, arms crossed like a disappointed parent. "You're 19, man. You gotta live a little." I sighed, shutting my laptop. "You know parties aren't my thing." "Correction," he grinned. "They could be your thing. You just don't give them a chance." I rolled my eyes. But before I could argue, Claire knocked on the door and slipped inside. "Are you two fighting again?" she teased, tossing her bag onto my desk. "Not fighting," Jamie said, just convincing him to have fun for once in his life. Claire's eyes flicked to me, amused. "You're not going?" "I wasn't planning to," I admitted. Her smile was small, knowing. "That's a shame. You'd look good in a theme outfit." I frowned. "Theme?" Jamie practically lit up. "That's the best part. Costume party. Anything goes. The weirder the better." Claire leaned closer, her voice soft but mischievous. "So technically, you could wear anything." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, sure. Like that's gonna happen." But she didn't laugh. She just tilted her head, watching me again with those eyes that always seemed to see too much. And then she said it. "What if I picked something for you?" My heart skipped. I tried to brush it off. "No way." "Oh, come on," Jamie chimed in. "That would be hilarious." But Claire wasn't joking. Her smile turned slow, deliberate. "Not hilarious. Interesting." I swallowed hard. "You're not serious." "I might be." For a moment, the room went quiet. I could feel my pulse in my neck. And even though I wanted to protest, some part of me, the part one usually ignored, was curious. Claire broke the silence first. "Tell you what. If you hate it, you don't have to wear it. But if you're brave enough to try, you might surprise yourself." Jamie laughed, clapping me on the back. "Deal. He's in." I started, but it was already decided. The next day, Claire handed me a bag. Plain. Ordinary. But the weight of it felt anything but. "Don't peek until tonight," she said, eyes sparkling. "Promise?" I promised. And I regretted it instantly, because the suspense was unbearable. All day, I carried that bag around like it held explosives. Every time I glanced at it, my stomach twisted. When evening came, I sat on my bed, staring at it for what felt like hours. Finally, with shaky hands, I pulled the zipper open. Inside was fabric. Soft. Flowing. Dark blue, with little silver patterns that caught the light like stars. A dress. I froze. I thought maybe there'd be a costume, something funny, ironic. But this wasn't a joke. It was beautiful. Elegant. Feminine. And suddenly, my throat was dry. I whispered to myself, she's insane. But even as I said it, I couldn't stop touching the fabric. It was the same dress from her closet, the one I'd seen her wear once at a campus event, the one that had made people turn their heads when she walked into the room. She must have noticed the way I'd looked at it. She had noticed everything. That night, standing in front of the mirror with the dress hanging from my hands, I realized Claire hadn't just given me clothes. She had given me a choice. A dangerous one. If I wore it, even for a second, I'd be stepping into something I could never take back. But if I didn't, I'd never know. And that was how it began. I must have stared at that dress for half an hour before I even moved. It just hung there against the edge of my bed, whispering at me. My chest felt tight, like my lungs couldn't quite figure out if they were supposed to breathe or hold everything in. I picked it up, then set it down. Picked it up again. My reflection in the mirror kept watching me like it was waiting for an answer. Just try it, I muttered to myself. But my hands froze at the thought. I wasn't supposed to. Dresses weren't for me. If anyone walked in and saw me like this, I couldn't even finish the thought without my stomach dropping. Yet, right underneath the fear, there was something else. A restless pull. A curiosity I couldn't shake. I let out a long breath. My fingers trembled as I slipped the dress over my head. The fabric brushed against my skin, and suddenly it was real. The cool softness slid down my shoulders, falling into place around me. I caught my reflection, and for a moment, my brain didn't even register it was me. The dress clung in places I didn't expect. The shimmer caught the dim light of my room. I felt exposed. Wrong. Terrified. But also, alive. Like some hidden frequency had switched on inside me, humming with energy I'd never felt before. I backed away from the mirror, shaking my head. This is crazy, I whispered. My voice was thin, almost breaking. Then there was a knock on the door. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. Hey, Claire's voice floated through, light and casual. You ready? Panic shot through me. Ready? No. Not even close. I scrambled, pulling the fabric away, almost tripping as I yanked it off. My hands were shaking so badly I shoved it under the blanket like I was hiding contraband. Yeah, just a sec, I stammered, my throat dry. The doorknob turned. She stepped in before I could stop her. Claire's eyes immediately darted to the bed. The lump of fabric under the blanket. My face burning like fire. She didn't say anything at first. She just closed the door behind her, leaned against it, and crossed her arms. Then, softly, you tried it on. It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard. No, I just. She smiled. Not teasing, not mocking. Just warm. It suits you, you know. The room tilted. My legs felt unsteady. I can't wear it, I blurted. Why not? She asked gently. Because, my words tangled. Because people will laugh. Because it's not me. Her gaze softened. Isn't it? Something in my chest cracked at that. I couldn't look at her. My throat ached with words I didn't know how to say. Claire stepped closer. You don't have to go out in it. Not if you don't want to. But right now, it's just us. Just me and you. No one else gets a say. Her voice was steady, almost hypnotic. She reached over and pulled the dress from under the blanket, smoothing it out like it was fragile. Then she held it toward me. Put it back on, she said softly. I shook my head. I can't. You can, she whispered. And I'll be right here. My chest tightened. Every part of me wanted to run, to hide. But my hands betrayed me. They reached. Slowly. Reluctantly. And when I slipped into it again, this time with Claire's eyes on me, something shifted. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't pretending. For a long moment, she just looked at me. Not with pity. Not with judgment. But with something I couldn't name. Finally, she smiled. Beautiful. The word hit me like a shock. My knees almost gave out. And no, I stammered. Yes, she said firmly. Look. She turned me toward the mirror. And for the first time, I didn't look away. I stared. My breath caught. It wasn't perfect. My hair was a mess, my posture stiff, my face unsure. But under all that, there was someone new staring back. Someone I'd never dared to meet before. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to. The mirror held me longer than I expected. I kept waiting for the shame to crush me, for the laughter I'd imagined 1,000 times in my head to echo in my ears. But it never came. The only sound was Claire's quiet breathing beside me, steady and calm, like an anchor keeping me from drifting away. The longer I stared, the stranger it felt. The panic began to fade, replaced by something warmer, something I didn't have a word for yet. I whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "It doesn't look bad." Claire's lips curved into a smile. "It looks more than not bad. It looks right." Right. The word slipped into me like a key turning in a lock. I didn't answer, but my hands betrayed me again, smoothing the fabric, tracing the delicate patterns as if I'd never touched anything so fragile in my life. Claire tilted her head. "Do you want to try the shoes?" I blinked. Shoes? She reached into the bag and pulled out a pair of simple black heels. Not too tall, not flashy, just enough. She set them on the floor between us like an invitation. My pulse spiked. "Claire, I can't." "You don't have to," she interrupted softly. "But if you want to," her voice trailed off, leaving the choice in my hands. My hands, which were already shaking as I lowered myself onto the edge of the bed. The shoes weren't as terrifying as I expected. Clumsy, yes. My balance felt off, like I was learning to stand all over again. But when I looked in the mirror again, something shifted. The shoes changed everything, not just how I looked, but how I stood. Claire clapped her hands lightly. "See? Already taller, more confident." I laughed nervously. "Confident is not the word I'd use." "Then I'll use it for you," she said firmly. I tried a step. Nearly fell. Claire caught my arm, laughing, not cruel, but bright and easy. "You're a natural," she teased. "I almost broke my ankle," I muttered, but her laughter was contagious. Against my will, I smiled. For the first time that night, it felt fun. And once that door cracked open, I couldn't shut it again. Claire guided me, step by wobbly step, around the room until I was moving without thinking. She adjusted my posture, playfully tapping my shoulders when I slouched. She showed me how to hold my hands softer, how to tilt my head, how to own the space I was standing in. With every correction, something loosened inside me. I wasn't just playing dress-up. I was exploring. Discovering. When I finally sank back onto the bed, breathless and flushed, Claire sat beside me. Her expression had shifted, still warm, but thoughtful. "You know," she said, "I don't think this is just about tonight." I stiffened. "What do you mean?" She studied me for a moment. "You looked happy. Not just curious. Not just nervous. Happy. Like a piece of you clicked into place." Her words lodged deep in my chest. I wanted to argue, deny, laugh it off, but I couldn't. Because she was right. I had felt something. And the thought of ignoring it now seemed impossible. Claire nudged me gently. "It doesn't scare me, you know. Seeing you like this." I swallowed. "It scares me." She nodded, her hand brushing mine. "That's okay. Most important things do. Silence stretched between us. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. My reflection still lingered in the mirror across the room, a stranger who didn't feel like a stranger anymore. I whispered, "What if I like it too much?" Claire smiled softly. "Then maybe that means you found something true about yourself. And truth isn't something to be afraid of." Her words settled over me like a blanket. For the first time all evening, I felt a strange sense of peace, like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of the world. Maybe it was the beginning. And in that moment, with Claire beside me and the dress shimmering in the dim light, I let myself lean into it. Not just the clothes, but the possibility. The idea that there was more to me than I'd ever dared to believe. For the first time in my life, I wanted to see how far it could go. The days after that night blurred together. I thought I'd be able to tuck the memory away, bury it like I'd done with so many other parts of myself. Pretend it hadn't happened. Pretend it hadn't mattered. But it wasn't that simple. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, the shimmer of fabric against my skin, the way Claire's voice softened when she said beautiful. The way, just for a moment, I had felt whole. And once you feel that, you can't unfeel it. I tried. I really did. But the dress haunted me. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that made the rest of my life feel muted. Like everything was happening behind glass, slightly out of reach. It wasn't long before Jamie noticed. One evening, he leaned against the doorway of our dorm room, arms crossed, watching me scroll aimlessly through my phone. "You've been weird lately," he said bluntly. I glanced up. "Weird?" "Yeah. Zoning out. Smiling at nothing. Acting like you're hiding something." His eyes narrowed playfully. "Did you finally get a girlfriend and not tell me?" Heat rushed to my face. "No. Of course not." His grin widened. "Then what's the secret?" I shook my head, forcing a laugh. "There isn't one." But Jamie wasn't fooled. He never was. "Fine," he said, pushing off the doorframe. "Keep your secrets. Just remember, I'll figure it out." And that was the problem. Jamie would figure it out eventually. He always did. The pressure built, day by day, until I couldn't hold it anymore. It happened on a rainy Saturday. Claire and I were in her room, textbooks open but forgotten. She was sketching absent-mindedly in the margins of her notebook, while I sat staring at the window, my chest tight. Finally, I blurted it out. "I can't stop thinking about it." She looked up, eyebrows raised. "The dress?" I nodded. My throat felt raw. "It's messing with me. I don't know who I am anymore." Her gaze softened instantly. She closed her notebook and scooted closer. "Hey. You're still you." "No, I'm not," I said, my voice cracking. "I don't even know what me means anymore." I put it on, and for the first time in my life I didn't feel invisible. I felt right. And now I can't stop wanting that feeling back. "What does that mean?" Tears burned my eyes. I tried to blink them away, but they spilled over anyway. Claire's hand found mine. Warm. Steady. "It means," she said gently, "that you've discovered something important. Something you can't ignore." But what if everyone hates me for it? The words tore out of me before I could stop them. What if Jamie finds out? What if people laugh? What if you think I'm disgusting? The silence after that felt like an eternity. My chest heaved, waiting for the world to collapse. Then Claire squeezed my hand. "Look at me." I did. Reluctantly. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "I could never think that. Not about you. You're brave. Do you hear me? Brave. Because you're facing something most people spend their whole lives running from, the truth." My breath hitched. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But fear clung to me like chains. that was when the door burst open. Jamie stood there, drenched from the rain, eyes wide as they landed on me, on the dress I hadn't even realized I was still holding in my lap. The world stopped. "What the hell," he said slowly, "is going on?" My blood turned to ice. My hand shook so violently the fabric slipped from my fingers, pulling at my feet like evidence of a crime. My voice cracked. "It's not what it looks like." Jamie's gaze flicked between me and Claire, confusion written all over his face. "It looks like he stopped, searching for the words. "Like you're dressing up. As a girl." Shame crashed over me. I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," I choked out. "I didn't mean." Claire cut in sharply. "Stop." Her voice was fierce, stronger than I'd ever heard it. She stood, squaring her shoulders at Jamie. "Don't you dare make him feel ashamed." Jamie blinked. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were," she snapped. "You were about to laugh, or judge, or say something you can't take back. But you don't understand what this means." Jamie's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at me again, really looked. My tear-streaked face, the trembling in my hands, the way I couldn't even lift my head. His voice, when it came, was quieter. "So, this is real?" I forced myself to nod. My throat burned. "I don't know what's wrong with me." Jamie's expression shifted, softening. For once, the usual grin and sarcasm were gone. "Hey," he said quietly. "Nothing's wrong with you." The words broke me. I sobbed, burying my face in my hands. Claire wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close. "See," she whispered. "You're not alone. Not anymore." Jamie hesitated, then stepped into the room. He crouched in front of me, awkward but sincere. "I'm sorry I barged in. I didn't get it. But if this makes you happy, then I'll try." I lifted my head, disbelief flooding me. "You don't mean that." "I do," he said firmly. "You're my friend. And friends don't bail when things get real." For the first time, I let myself believe it might be okay. Not perfect. Not easy. But okay. The confrontation I'd feared most had come and gone. And I was still standing. Maybe even stronger. The rain kept falling outside, steady and endless, as if the world had decided to wash itself clean. Inside, the air felt different. Softer. Warmer. I sat there, the dress pulled around me, my heart still thundering but not from fear anymore. Claire's arm stayed around my shoulders, steady as always. Jamie sat across from me, quieter than I'd ever seen him, his usual joke swallowed by something heavier, something real. For the first time I wasn't hiding. The secret I thought would destroy me had been dragged into the light. And yet, I was still here. They were still here. Jamie rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "So, what now?" The question hung in the air, huge and impossible. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. Claire squeezed my hand. "Now," she said softly, "we give him space to figure it out. At his own pace." Her words were like a bomb. I let out a shaky breath. Jamie nodded slowly. "Yeah. Okay. Whatever you need, man, or," he paused, fumbling. "Whatever you want to be called." The way he said it, it wasn't perfect. But it wasn't cruel either. It was the sound of someone trying. And maybe that was enough for now. That night, after Jamie left, I sat in front of the mirror again. The storm outside had eased, moonlight spilling through the window, casting silver shadows across the room. I studied my reflection. The dress still shimmered faintly, but what caught my attention wasn't the fabric anymore. It was the way my eyes looked, uncertain, yes, but alive. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was staring at a stranger. I whispered into the quiet, "Who are you?" And for once, the question didn't scare me. Claire's voice broke the silence, soft and steady. "Whoever you want to be." I turned to her. She was smiling, not the playful, teasing smile she usually wore, but something gentler. Proud. You really think I can do this? I asked. I don't just think it, she said firmly. I know it. Something inside me loosened, like a knot untangling. I smiled, small and tentative, but real. The world outside hadn't changed. People would still judge. Fear would still follow me. But inside, something was different. Stronger. Brighter. I wasn't invisible anymore. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of learning who I really was.